What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. Mr. Ray, what's up, dude?
Good morning, Wes. How's the weather on the West Coast?
Oh, it's gorgeous, buddy. It's actually a little cold this morning. It was 63 degrees.
Imagine
so a little chilly. Imagine
Wow.
that. A little chilly.
Yeah, I think it's like 38, 39 degrees here. So, glorious spring day.
Yeah.
It is overcast and raining, and I've come to really rely on the sun to help me wake up. We've talked so many times about Andrew Huberman and how the sun is so important at kind of setting our internal clock that I don't wear sunglasses anymore. I haven't worn them in months. Now, there have been very few opportunities to wear sunglasses, but I've come to realize that when the sun is bright, there are healthful benefits to be absorbed, on my skin and through my eyes. So, maybe the reason today I'm kind of slow going is because, yes, my father just died over the weekend. And so, I'm allowed, like when a newborn, is born into the family, I'm allowed to take this excuse and kind of wring it out for as long as I want. My daughter Thea is sick this morning, so we kind of just read some Harry Potter in bed. And then, I didn't get the full 8 hours, so I tried to, so I collected a few more minutes of sleep there. Yeah, so those mornings when the sun is out, I'm like, oh, Andrew Huberman says these first few moments are so important because this is when my internal clock gets regulated. And then the converse is that waking up when it's cloudy and kind of rainy. Yeah. It's I feel like a jazz song or something, just kind of no start, no finish, just kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Formless amoeba. So, as a result, I missed the scorecard this morning. But when I was originally awake between 6 and 8, I actually was running around. I did squeeze in some of my scorecard, my goal review, my act of love, and that.
Hell yeah.
Does that answer you the question of how I'm doing today?
Yeah. Well,
I think we're almost out of time now. That was a bit of a ramble.
Well, I think obviously the question that all the dogs are going to be asking is you kind of grazed over the point that your father passed away this weekend.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm super sorry. You and I talked yesterday.
Yeah.
My thoughts and prayers are with you and your family.
Thank you.
But it's also a time of, potential leadership for you.
Yeah.
Maybe if you wouldn't mind going into some sort of detail, if you're comfortable with that, on sharing with the guys.
Yeah. Well, there's, a lot of things come to mind, and I lack the ability to really tell them in a kind of arc or narrative way. So I'll just kind of let them out as they come to my mouth. But my dad was sober for the last 15 years of his life, had a major drinking problem for the first 50 years of his life. So he died sober, and me hanging on to my sobriety through this emotionally traumatic time is extremely important to me. I've been leaning into my program, going to some meetings with one of my brothers on this call, focusing on fitness, the jiu-jitsu, the personal trainer, eating healthy, has not been a priority the last week, but that's still important to me. And so my program and my sobriety is like one way I think I want to honor him. Right. Because, if I go back to drinking or doing drugs, I'm not sure if I can be a good father and a good husband. He was sober at the end. He wasn't a good husband and father or sober for most of my life. So, so those kind of things come to mind, like honoring him and then like avoiding the mistakes he made. We'll just start there. Those are kind of like first and foremost in my mind.
Yeah, I'm going to see if Jordan wants to come up as well, because we talked about his dad not too long ago.
Yeah.
So Jordan, if you have a chance, feel free to join. If not, no sweat, buddy. But what's your mental and emotional status right now, pal?
Well, I believe it's strong, just because of the work that we do together every single day. And then the program that you set up, the Rhomas program, which is the daily scorecard meetings, the daily scorecard, and then the pod that we do Mondays and Fridays. That has been a source of strength. What's up? Look at him stunting his calf collection.
What's up, y'all? I just had to get something to cover up my mess of a hair.
Yeah. That beard is looking
Minnesota beard, dude.
Yeah, he's like, the plane crashed in the mountain and he kind of had to rebuild the life for a couple of years there.
It's almost time to shave it off. The snow is going away, so it's almost time for clean shaving season again.
Hell yeah. So
thank you for joining us, Jordan. And right, so I'm just kind of like now that my father has died, and like for a long time leading up to it, because it was a slow roll, right, with the cancer for 4 years. I'm just kind of like navigating these feelings. And can you remind me what your journey was like in terms of your father?
So just a quick background.
He had a crazy story with his dad. Sorry, Jordan, go ahead, please.
So he had me at 61. And then like I lived with him the first 3 years of my life. And then my mom, moved out on him. He was a bad husband. He treated her very poorly, lots of verbal abuse and, other things. And then, I saw him, through the years. I went down there a lot because my mom saw value in like having me go to him, but he just was never a good father. Like he didn't try to teach me things really. I learned a lot by just being around him because he's a very smart man. Like I'll never say he's stupid. He's probably the smartest person I've ever met. But like he wasn't built to be a dad. He wasn't built to be, a husband. And he also didn't have a father in his life. His dad died when he was 2. So it's like, well, we talked about this on that last call or whatever, but he was working with what he had. And I've learned to soften up to that now and not be so mad at him for it. Even though, verbal and other types of abuse are not fun, but like he was doing what he thought maybe was right, or, whatever version of that seemed okay. So yeah, I don't
just lack the skills.
Yeah. And then after going through that shit that happened in, January, it just has messed with me. And like maybe
January was him dying and you going through. He
actually, dude, that's right. You weren't on that call that day. You were with your dad. So I got a call in January that my dad was essentially dying like that day, basically. Okay. So
and where?
I drove to in Iowa. That he's down in Iowa. I'm up in Minneapolis here. So he's in the nursing home. He has had hospice there, I guess, for the couple of weeks prior. And he hadn't eaten anything for the three days leading up to this. He had been like bedridden, like his blood oxygen levels were all like wild. Like basically his body was shutting down. It was showing all those signs that a body is going to die like soon, like not, a week from now, like hours to a day or so. And so when I got there, I saw him. I'd never seen him so weak or fragile or, eyes sunken in. Like he just looked dead when I saw him. And the hospice nurse told me like it was probably going to be that day. We planned this woman who is apparently my sister. I met her for the first time that day. But there's a whole other thing with that.
Whoa,
but like,
that's crazy.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever talked to her. So yeah, that was weird also, especially considering what she's done. And it just kind of, yeah, that's a whole other thing. She is a bad person. But so I planned the ceremony.
That was hilarious. What you just, like you said, there's a whole university or universe or encyclopedia there. Yeah. She's a bad person.
That's just the end of the story. She's a bad person, and I'm going through kind of a bunch of shit with her too. And it's whatever. But at the end of the day, I was trying to be civil because my dad is down the hall dying. And I was like, well, yeah, we have to plan his ceremony, whatever. So we talked to the funeral director and everything, like planned just a little, very small ceremony. Like we were ready. Like he was going to die. Like that's what we were ready for. So I stayed up all night that night, like going back and forth between his room. Cause I've always heard that like towards the end, sometimes they don't want the family member to be in the room when they pass. So I was trying not to be in the room too much. And then the next morning, he just at like 8 a.m., I walked back into his room and he's getting out of bed and walking to his closet. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm kind of cold. I was just grabbing my coat. And I was like, bro, do you remember being like dead yesterday? Like, what do you mean you're just grabbing your coat because you're cold? And from that point on, it was like an upward trajectory. Like they told me even that day, they're like, well, this is like a rally and, that can happen, blah, blah, blah. And fun fact, that was January 25th. I talked to him on last Friday and he sounded healthier than he sounded since like last winter. He sounded, his voice sounded so strong. I haven't heard his voice sound that strong in like quite a while. So he sounds even stronger than like the last time I'd seen him, like around Christmas time or whatever. So, and that's just like, honestly, I haven't been on calls much. I've just been like having a weird fucking spring. Lots of other stuff is just happening. Like
your dad is Benjamin Button.
Right. Like he died that night, I think. And now he's just reversing in age. I'm pretty sure. And then with a bunch of other stuff going on, I feel kind of like lost right now, but like,
how's your program?
Fitness wise, great. Anything else, not so great. I guess that's not completely true, but like overall fitness wise, I'm training for my races this year now. I got a solid training program going on. I've been lifting more. I've been running still every day. Today will be day 100.
Your cold plunges. I saw you doing that. Cycling
unfortunately,
in the winter, right?
It's not a ton. I switched to running over this winter.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And today's going to be day, I think 118 consecutively that I've run at least a mile outside.
Wow.
So it was really nice to have that over the winter time to pass these, these shitty months of like darkness and cold and just finding a lot of community and stuff. And now with, the cold plunge place that ended up closing, there's a whole story behind that, but like, we're working on a process of getting a new spot open. I just bought a portable ice tub to throw on my balcony so I can do ice dips in my balcony this summer if our space doesn't get opened up. But like, I'm basically just trying to find momentum in my movement, and that's it right now. I can't seem to like find focus anywhere else, and I'm trying to figure out how to get kind of back onto my stronger. In January, I was doing great, and it's almost like something happened at the end of the month that just threw me way off course. And I'm kind of just trying to pick up the pieces from there.
Look, it's, if we think about what you used to look like and what you used to weigh, right? Like I don't think it's fair to say, well, everything sucks, but I'm kind of still doing this fitness thing. Cause like the fitness thing, if you ask me, the fitness thing, if you ask me, is absolutely the foundation of the house. It is that like molten lava core from which like the rest of the planet would not be possible without, right? So, and like, you're not getting paid to exercise. right? So like a weaker
Right.
man, that might be the first thing that goes if life becomes unpredictable. But I'm really proud of you for not doing that, and hearing your story reminds me as well of like, yeah, how important it is for like, and why I'm really happy and proud that I've stuck to my program, because
Yeah,
it's like,
congrats to you too. I mean,
thanks,
and
dog.
you went through the actual loss now, which I'm so sorry. I didn't
Yeah.
get to say that when I first came on, but I'm so sorry to
I
hear
hear
that.
you, man. I hear you. It is, thank you for saying that. I don't know, like Wes, like you, my dad checked out of the picture, um, at an early age through, alcoholism and having 5 kids. So I'm not personally feeling a big emotional void that's right all of a sudden. There isn't a financial or leadership void all of a sudden, right? I had to figure that out, or I'm the process of figuring out that emotional and financial leadership void has been a kind of a 25-year process, right?
Mhm.
I can't say that I've really figured it out, but like, at least I know I'm not, like my identity isn't earthquaked from this loss, right? My identity is what we're doing right now. Like my identity is the men's group and the scorecard, and my, self-care and beauty regime, as my wife calls it, right? Which is like the cold plunges, the exercise, the jujitsu, the meditation, everything that we do. Um, yeah. So, and I don't even, that might not even be healthy, super healthy. Cause I know like we're not supposed to identify with our jobs, and I can understand that now because that's something external that can be taken away from us. But, the men's group is something that is voluntary, that no one can take away. So I think it's probably qualifies as closer to the identity.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's it. Like, that is a, yeah. So that is a very interesting kind of little slice of your life story, Jordan. Amongst like every piece of the pie in your life story is absolutely fascinating, right? That's what I've learned so far. And yeah, like the fitness thing is like Wes said, like let's not confuse the good things that you do. Right, like let's keep the good things you do in the good list, and
Yeah.
and not like, right, like the fitness
Yeah.
is it's probably from like where everything else good in your life springs, for lack of a better way of quickly describing it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Don't make a good thing a bad thing. That's what my
Mm-hmm.
mentor told me that Ray's referring
Mm-hmm.
to. And it sounds so simple, but we often do it. And I would say making a good thing a bad thing, a derivative of that would be, right, like reducing the impact of the good thing. So yeah, I'm only doing this. It's like, oh, dude, you can't put only minimally running a mile every day.
For 180 for
Yeah,
180 consecutive
straight, yeah.
days.
I'm only doing that. Yeah.
Right.
In the winter.
That's the best time.
In Minnesota. My goodness.
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode. Let me ask you guys this, because I think all three of us, the thread, at least one of the threads that binds us here on this call, is that we all have had/have fathers who, like maybe just at the very loosest fit that term. They're absent. They're
biological
97%
fathers.
absent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So do you guys ever get resentful at that, or maybe going through the actual loss or potential loss of your father? Is there ever thoughts of resentment that come up? Be like, oh, I wish I would have had him, or what is that like for you guys?
You want to start, Jordan?
Sure, I can. Yeah. I guess the simple answer is yeah. I mean, every year of my life, I wanted him to be there more. Because like, I mean, as you guys know, when you grow up, all your friends, they all have, mom, dad. Well, not all, but a good portion of them have like mom, dads picking them up in the air and doing shit with them. And like,
or that's how we perceive it anyway, right? That they've got
right.
that
That's
everybody
right.
has this Leave It to Beaver life and we don't.
So yeah, like I always saw kids with dads. I'm like, man, my dad is not anything like that with me. Like my dad fucking just doesn't even like want to see me really. Like that's crazy. So yeah, I had resentment for a long time. And I think I still have some, because he has so much knowledge that I wish I had. I mean, so much knowledge, wisdom, he knows so much about everything. And it's like, dude, you didn't pass that on to anybody. Like, what?
Right.
Like you had a kid. Like, now I don't know if I want kids, but like he had one. So like, why not attempt to pass whatever you like? If you're going to go through the work of having a fucking kid, like have a kid, like do something. And if you're not going to be full on father, like at least when I'm there, like, do better. But again, so yes, the resentment, but am I learning to move past that and like accept it as what it was because I can't change it or do anything about it? Yes, I'm also processing. But yeah, I've resented that in him a lot because I always wanted, something more, as any man would want more from a father,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Ray, how about you?
Well, did I have resentment? Yes, for sure. Do I still have it? It's something I try to manage, like and Jordan alluded to it earlier, where like sometimes at some point in our journey, we learn compassion and we learn to see our fathers as like fathering the way that behavior was modeled to them. Right. So like, for example, my dad never says, I love you. Right. Or when I say I love you, Dad, he doesn't say I love you too. Right.
What does he say? What does he say? Like, okay.
He says, okay. Yeah. He says, okay. Or
wow.
See you soon or something, or yep. Or
same.
like, and it's not, and so, okay. So it's like at Starbucks, when you say thank you and they say, yep, or uh-huh, you kind of linger with that. It's like, why don't you say you're welcome? Is it that is it that kind of like submissive to just use the proper language construction, right? But with and you might dwell on your father's response as well, right? Yeah. But then, like Jordan alluded to, if we learn the kind of compassionate approach, or for whatever it's called, we can think about their father never saying "I love you" to, or responding with saying "I love you" or responding with "I love you" to them, and that is just the behavior that was modeled and imprinted on them in terms of father-son dynamics, right? Mm-hmm. So it in that way, guys like Jordan and me and you can kind of educate ourselves that it's not that we're unlovable. It's not that he has the power to say "I love you" too, but chooses not to use it on us. It's just that he wasn't like emotionally trained to say that, and you can call it a generational thing, right? Where men of that generation, we're not trained or permitted to say "I love you" or "I love you too," right?
Yep.
So resentment, I guess, is the first stage, and then in there, buried in there, is like, I'm not good enough for him to say "I love you," right? And so I've kind of lost the thread there, but I would hope that I have pushed past the resentment, but realistically, it's probably something that is an ongoing process.
What benefits has it given you both?
Oh, it's huge. With that, like the accepting that it's like,
yeah, exactly. So just the other side of that coin. So the lack of fatherly leadership, for lack of better terminology, how has that benefited both of you?
Do you want to go first, Jordan?
You can go ahead. Right.
Okay, so like, just think about if I can just use the metaphor of driving in a car and road rage, right? Every time someone does something on the road to piss you off, right? If you have the approach of, okay, that deserves the death penalty, right? Because it's never just, I'm going to do it to them too, right? It's like, how dare they slow my day down by 10 seconds?
Right.
You're just filled with rage and filled with cortisol, and you suffer, right? And like in like the Marcus Aurelian kind of like way, it's like you're letting external events and stuff you can't control ruin your day.
Right.
Whereas if you take the approach of compassion, someone cuts you off in traffic, you're like, well, he must be having a bad day, or maybe he just didn't notice me, or maybe he doesn't know how to drive. And it's just a matter of time before karma, sends his car off of the side of a bridge in a flaming, whatever. It doesn't ruin your day. An external event doesn't fill your head with kind of like noise.
Got it.
So one of the small upsides of taking the acceptance approach or the compassion approach to, accepting that dad doesn't say I love you too, and not being a prisoner of that, is that like, that's just one fewer external events that fill up my day with static. And a big one. That's a big one.
Do you think it's made you a better father because of it?
Like
it gave you a counter example?
Yeah. Okay. So like that, and that's, I don't know if I'm a better father because of it, but definitely being a better father is possible because part of that instruction is like, my dad wasn't the perfect dad. That's not the way I need to father. And I need to be on the lookout too, that the way I was fathered is the way I'm going to father if I'm passive about it. What's up, Ryan?
Hey guys, how's it going? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
So, Jordan, how about you? Has having a largely absent father made you a better man in some sort of way?
Or your emotional acceptance, your emotional acceptance of that, or being at peace with that, right? And that's what we're talking about.
Are we talking about the acceptance of not having one, or the effects of not having one?
Let's say both. Whatever direction you want.
Okay. All right. Sure. I guess in the sense of not having a dad around, I think it's made me a lot softer to people. I'm more of a people pleaser because I grew up with a single mom who was also, she ran a daycare. And so she's a very soft person. And I think that, I think it just made me a little softer in some ways, which could be good or bad, I suppose. I don't know exactly if I can answer, on how not having a dad in my life was a good thing necessarily, but finding acceptance and not holding resentment for him for the last couple of years has been something that's been helpful, because I think it's all come to a head though, just in my journey of health and wellness. I've gained more mindfulness and, a little bit more control of how I feel about things. And so finding acceptance and him not being there is just gave me a lot of clarity to not hold any feelings of negativity towards him, because it doesn't serve me to do that. It doesn't do me any good to just be mad at him, because I can't change anything that happened. So being able to, like I said, just move past that without those negative feelings just makes me more clear-headed to put that energy into something else, rather than holding resentment for someone and something I couldn't control anyway. Got it.
Ryan, I'm not sure of your father situation, but I saw your comment in the comments section. So what's your thoughts about all of this?
Parents divorced they separated when I was 3, and then parents divorced when I was 6. So I never really had Yeah, that whole experience definitely softened me up. Kind of sent me down a path. Like I ended up studying psychology. I was so curious about the other side of things, and in a way, it's softened my dad up because I, in turn, pursued him, working for him. You know, trying to have that connection with him. And now, I finally cracked him enough to make him say like, I love you back. And stuff,
Yeah.
How long did it take?
I mean, I'm 34. I don't know.
So that was
Last Tuesday.
that was a long insurgent campaign, huh?
He's gone through his own trials of turning towards sobriety, like, infidelity and alcoholism led to the split. And so that sent him towards, a path of self acceptance and yeah, it all just kind of, just like in comedy, man, it's that pendulum, keeps swinging. And it's this weird balancing out of our forefathers' recklessness. It's just how it goes.
Do you guys think it's a lack of having a father around, or it's being different? Because like, I think maybe some people could argue, let's say in the animal kingdom, like there's plenty of examples where, there's a child that's born, right, of that species, and then the father was gone, several months before, the cub was born. And it's more of like the mother's job to raise a child. But in the human species, that's not how it is. So do you guys think it's the lack of having a father, or is the fact of being different than the kids who have fathers around?
If I can go for that, that makes me think of what Jordan just said a few minutes ago about how everyone else on the cul-de-sac had a dad who would like throw the ball with them, or he had some kind of imagery like that. And with maturity, I guess we also realize that no matter what the parental construction is, kids can end up fucked up, or you can end up fucked up, or not everyone on that cul-de-sac has that perfect relationship. That's just an expression of your longingness for that. You're longing for that, right?
I do think, though, sorry to cut you off, Ray, but this is really important as we talk about this. From my understanding, the statistics are pretty abysmal.
Yeah.
Like the correlation between fatherless homes and crime or lack of graduating or like whatever that is, like it seems like they're really bad.
No, I absolutely believe that like marriage should be between one man and one woman, and they should raise the kids in a house with white picket fences as God intended. And the language spoken in the home should be English. If it's good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for us. Like I agree with everything you're putting there, and I'm not saying there's no difference between fatherless homes.
We're gonna blank that out when we post this to YouTube.
Right.
And he's kidding, by the way.
Do the Jeopardy, do the Jeopardy theme song, or wow. But I'm not. So, Wes, if you were actually listening rather than trying to think of something smart to say.
No, I'm trying to save us from being canceled. That's
okay. And Ryan's gone. And do we lose Ryan? Okay. Okay. And we lost the East Coast. Okay. I'm not saying that there's no difference between a fatherless home and a fathered home. What I'm trying to communicate is that those houses with a father present still result in imperfect family situations, right? And so your father has been literally absent your whole life, right? Mm-hmm. And Jordan's has been absent for most of his life, and mine was present in the home, but through alcoholism, mental illness, having 5 kids and not being able to give enough attention and love to each one. Like I did, like the physical presence of the father in the home did not result in everything you guys missed. right? So I don't know how to say that concisely, but I guess it's just to say that abandonment by the father is maybe the worst, but constructive abandonment is still a big challenge that plenty of us face, even when the father is like physically present in the home.
Yeah, it's on a spectrum. It's not, is there a father or no father? It's like, well, there's a big difference between a father and a great father. You know,
right. And so what Jordan saw growing up was probably everybody's got a great father, and I don't even get a mediocre one. I don't get anything, right? And so the point that I was trying to make was that, you know, I don't get a medal for sticking around, right? It's a hell of an effort is required to show up for Thea the way I wanted my dad to show up for me, or the kind of dad Jordan wanted growing up.
Yeah. If you guys had to say one positive that has come out of it, like actual tangible or not just conceptual, what is the one positive that's come out of it for you guys? And I'll throw it over to, let's say, we'll go Jordan. Oh, you go Ryan. He raised his hand.
Out of being raised in a broken home, sort of, is that what you mean? Like,
yeah, like as a result of the negative situation.
So because of it, I was raised partially by my grandfather from like kindergarten to fourth grade, and strongest connection. And because of it, I have like this, like a super deep resonance. I call my grandparents all the time. It's a nice thing to have that generational connection. And I got to see the difference of how I imagine my dad would have raised me versus how my grandfather raised me, and how my dad did raise me, because I spent a lot of time. My mom forced us to, you know, travel down to Philly to go see him all the time. But there was this one moment at my brother's graduation from Temple a few years back where my dad came and he came up to my grandfather and he was just like, "Thank you so much for like carrying the torch when I wasn't there." You know, like,
wow.
It was crazy. It was a cool moment where, he was able to like pass that message across. You know, it's like that he was thinking about that the whole time. He's like, he probably thought about, damn, I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have been there. But at least Bob, my grandfather, was there to carry the torch, you know.
Wow.
And would never have had that connection. My grandfather would have just been a grandfather, this sort of imaginary character in my mind. But now he's my grandfather, Cornelius. I know.
Is that his name?
Cornelius McCrudden, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Wow. He sounds like a founding father.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you know, first of all, great job on your grandfather's part. But then also I got to give some credit to your dad, because that comment is rarely shared. It's probably often thought, but rarely shared.
No, the ego, there's a big wall of ego in front of that has to be smashed through, right?
He didn't have to say that to some fucking stepdad guy. You know what I mean? You got to say it to my mom's dad. You know what I mean? There's that.
Yeah, but still, I mean, there's still a massive, wall there. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, man. Jordan, how about you, bro?
So what would be the positive from him not being around? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, like one tangible positive.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Can I
go, please.
Say something, stimulate something. Wes, you took on a leadership role at an extremely young age, right? Like you had your first job helping other family when you're 8 or something like that. So I'm just reminded that I had to perform a similar function around 18, 19 or something like that, where I was doing airport pickups for money to help cover the bills. So Jordan, like, and I don't know if it's a necessarily a strictly a benefit to be thrust into that leadership role at a young age, but Jordan, were you thrust into a leadership role at a young age?
I mean, not a flat out leadership role, but I mean, I definitely remember, like, I definitely did the paper out with my mom and my brothers. Like, we all did the paper out because that was something that our family needed money. So my mom would drive and all us kids would ride in the back at, 3 a.m. and run to the houses and drop the papers off. And so it wasn't necessarily like a leadership role, but I had more responsibility to take on than other people my age, I think. For sure.
Your friends weren't doing that at 3 a.m. in the morning.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's not a normal life. That's like not a normal kid kind of schedule.
What's funny is I never even knew that wasn't normal until I started talking to people later in life. And I was like, I remember doing like the paper out when I was like, 5, 6 years old, like getting up at 3 a.m, like running papers out in the freezing cold weather. And they're like, you did what? I'm like, oh, you didn't have a paper out? Like, oh shit. Okay. Like,
hey, why don't you have ink stained hands? First period.
Or like lumberjack calluses, like in your So Wes, I was wondering why you kept belaboring this point, but I guess when I use the term normal family, right? Like, does that suggest was that a negative? Was that strictly a negative kind of imprint on Jordan that he was doing that? Or
no.
I'm starting to think no, that it was like there were probably some important lessons, or there was some kind of character or integrity building going on there.
Oh, dude, I think there's nothing that's better than an outstanding father for a young man. Mm-hmm. But I would argue that not having a father or a largely absent father is probably better. Later, Ryan, good seeing you, bro.
See you, Ryan. Take care.
Is probably better than having a subpar father. Does that make sense? So So
a bad father's worse than no father. You're wondering if that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so like, I actually think it's a blessing that we've all had these different derivatives of having a negative male role model in our lives, or not in our lives at all.
The absentee
because
factor.
It made the road so hard that it forces you to develop skills. There are certain things that you just cannot synthetically manufacture.
Right.
Like even if your dad was around, Jordan, and he said, "Hey, Jordan, I want you for character building. I want you to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning and go take these papers out." That'd probably last like 3 days.
Right.
The amount of times where I see these, like I said, synthetically manufactured situations inside of households that are purely exercise and not actual circumstance, they don't last. So it's like, if you can't change the situation, then you have to respond to it. There's no other way around it, or you go broke. So when the contrast is you either don't eat or you do the thing, then you're going to take out the fucking paper, right? Because you need to eat. So I think it's important for us all to recognize our journeys weren't perfect, but they are probably what gave us the tools that we have now. And are we using those tools optimally?
Right. So like, that I think you're onto something there, Wes, where by not having the perfect family, right, that doesn't mean we're flawed human beings. That means a whole different set of learning experiences were thrust upon us, right?
Yep.
We talk a lot on this group about manufactured hardship, where we have to thrust ourselves into hardship, right? Because our society is so successful by some measures that we have tried to evolve out of all the sharp edges of life, right? So we do cold plunges, we do aggressive physical activity, because there's something in our nature or that kind of withers on the vine without that hardship, right? And so growing up in these imperfect family situations, I suppose you could say, kind of hardens the steel.
Yep. Yeah, there's a phenomenal line in the Batman movie with Bane. I forget what it's called. One of you guys might know. It's the Christopher Nolan Batman's, like that third derivative of Batman, or that third movie. And they're fighting. He's fighting Bane, and Batman turns off the lights. And it was awesome. Bane was like, "Oh, you think darkness is your friend," or something like that. Like, you adopted the darkness. I was born in it. There's a difference. You voluntarily went into the darkness, but I was born in it, so had to figure it out. So yeah, absent us being born in some sort of bad situation, then we do have to manufacture it. But it is hard to manufacture the same exact scenario of actually not having the resource. Voluntarily removing the resource is different than not having the resource. But if we don't have that, and I'm very thankful that we do for certain things, there are people right now who have to fight every single time if they want to get some calories in their body. That's a real fight, man. So we're very blessed by that. But I do think similarly of us on this phone call, we do maybe have some other areas, including not having a father around, that we've been deprived of that. So it's like, what positive are we going to take from it?
Right.
Yeah. And so like I'm looking at the counts comments in the chat, and it reminds me that according to my therapist, anyway, like until age 10, more or less, it's the mother's role to show the boy that he is loved and protected. And then from about the age of 10 onwards, it's the father's role to show the boy how to navigate the world as a man. And so I do, again, it is not a wholesale blessing to have no father in that situation, right? The ideal father helps you navigate the world as a man. But even for those of us who had a father present, we did not get that lesson.
Right.
And so I think that it's really hard for a young man to learn those lessons on his own, without first acting out or like, you know what I mean? Or like rebelling or pushing back or engaging in some kind of like self-destructive behavior, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can tell you that it gave me the greatest gift. So I have the pleasure now of helping guide to a certain degree my girlfriend's son, and he's 9 years old or 8 years old. Let's even say basketball. And Count, I'm going to mute you for some feedback. But I can see, I almost get a little bit resentful. It's like, I wish I would have had this. Let's even say navigating the basketball system and how many games he's playing relative to like what wasn't even playing at that age, because I had no father saying, hey, like, oh, you seem to take an interest in this. Why don't we get you in a league? I didn't know what a fucking league was, And that went all throughout my life. Like when I was working in finance, it wasn't until like, I didn't really know that you should be working 100-hour weeks until I found out my buddy was, and he was already ahead of me. Like, it's just these weird things that there's no rule book on it. And these are usually the conversations that you have at dinner, I assume, or like some sort of like, it's not taught in school. And I didn't fucking know about it, but it's given me this passion for finding successful patterns in life for myself and to share it with others, because we might not all have that. So it gave me the big benefit that I got is like this eternal, perpetual hunger for finding out how to get to the next level, but not having guidance. So I have to like study it down to like the atomic level to really understand it. So I think we've all benefited from our lack of, leadership role from our fathers. And that's the way that I've benefited. And Count, I'm not sure if you're still up here, bro, but I'm going to unmute
you. One sec. I'm looking for my headphones.
All right, cool. All right. Well,
Jordan,
sorry, go ahead, Ray.
Jordan, what do you think of like, like the what comes to mind is like the kind of like psychology or something that is required in like cases of child abuse, where like the abuse was done to the person when they were a kid, but as an adult, it's their job to kind of like to do something about it, or if we are inheriting some kind of mental illness like depression, that sucks. But by the time we're an adult, like no one's going to overcome that except ourselves.
Right.
And so I'm pretty sure that you've put together a plan consciously or subconsciously of how you are going to like overcome that kind of void.
I guess, what's the question there, I guess?
How do you perform the leadership function in yourself that without being shown the blueprint?
Yeah, that's been the tough one for me for a long time. And as a younger person, I mean, to be frank, I just never gave a shit. I kind of gave up for a long time. I mean, I just drank, I just partied. Like I was like, what's the point of living life? Like I didn't have guidance. So I'm like, I'm just going to party. Like partying's fun. I have a good time. So I just did that for a really long time. And when I started thinking about all these things that we talk about on these calls and having discussions with people, I started kind of analyzing how other men act outwardly. I started paying more attention to like my managers at work, like seeing what they do different that puts them in other positions that are higher up. And just seeing how other men who I want to emulate, how they act and what they do. Because again, like, and even if my dad would have been around, he was more of like, I mean, it is what it is, like, but in the world I'm in right now, it's more of a white collar world. And I'm trying to like navigate that world. He was just a mechanic he could deal though. He was a salesman at heart. So like, I could have definitely learned some things from him, especially like in the confidence realm. But, I think I'm just taking leadership for myself to navigate that now and see what makes sense and how to be a better man and how to treat other people better, and like to see that I don't have to be like a prick to be a man. Because like in my party years, I thought, oh, all these dudes who are, treating these women like shit and just like getting laid all the time and being the asshole in the group, but like people still seem to like them. That was that's the man I was trying to be back then. I was like, oh, I'm just going to be an asshole too when I drink and like do all those things. And that wasn't like a real man. That was a dude who was actually scared and lashing out. And like watching a calm, cool, collected male do, his thing at work, like the managers I've had, the ones who I respect and have wanted to like be like, that's been where I found my blueprints, is like looking for them in other people who I think are doing it well. And I want to do the same thing. So I became a leader myself 5-6 years ago in the attempt to just be a better person. Cause I didn't think who I was. Like people enjoyed being around me, I guess, and talking to me. I just didn't think I was as good as I should have been. And so I'm still on that path of trying to be the best man I can be, even though like I didn't really have that shown to me. I'm trying to figure out what that means for me.
Yeah. And Ray, if you don't mind wrapping this up, well, I want Count to participate as well, but I got to hop off on a conference call. So Ray, you take the leadership.
Thank you, Wes.
All right, buddy.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you, guys.
See you, Wes.
Later, dude.
Count, how do you think about leadership, or how have you found leadership within yourself if you haven't been given the blueprint?
I don't have a good answer for that. I can tell you how I did, but it's not something I advise repeating.
So then why are you here on this group?
What do you mean?
Like what calls you to join a men's group like this? Then is it part of that search for leadership?
I think it's more, a community of dudes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
we are. So
yeah, that's what I like about it.
Right on. And so, okay, well, look, tell me, like, okay, I'm gonna read you back to yourself the comment you put right in the chat, and I want you to riff on that. Okay.
Okay.
You said, I feel like it's the lack of quality guidance and direction at a young age. A woman can't teach you how to be a man. And that comment made me think about until 10, it's your mom's job. Until after 10, it's your dad's job. My dad was in the house, but he was not a great role model or teacher. And then the benefit I feel from a lack of guidance and learning everything by trial and error is that I understand my values and know myself very well. What prompted you to put all that stuff in the chat?
Well, it was all based on what you guys were talking about at the time. Like, I think my first two comments, you guys were talking about what's lacking in home without a good father.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's just really a lack of guidance. You don't have anyone to instill good values in you or show you how to navigate difficult situations.
Mm-hmm. And then, so how old are you? Remind me.
I'm 24.
24, yeah. And so so at what point, like, and is your dad still around?
Yeah.
Alive?
Yeah, my relationship with my dad is kind of right now better than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm. And so I wonder, like, do you think your dad still has the opportunity to be the role model for you, or do you just kind of like make peace with him as the father in your life and really have to figure out that role modeling with somebody else or on your own?
Well, both, because like as a person, like his emotional intelligence, he can't be my role model because him and my mother both had extremely traumatic childhoods. And so they're both emotionally stunted. They're essentially children.
Yeah.
But and you know, and that's something I had to overcome. I had to forgive them for that.
Yeah, 100%.
But my dad does have the opportunity to still be a role model in other ways, and he's taking that opportunity because, like, I'm working on my house right now, and he knows way more about that kind of stuff than me, and building machines and stuff, and so he helps me with that kind of stuff all the time. Yeah, but that's kind of where our relationship thrives, is talking about like machines and stuff.
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind is one of the first comments that Ryan's saying same. Yeah. So like one of the first things he said about connecting with family, if there's a kind of an awkwardness gap, is activity-based quality time, right? And so it sounds like to me that when you and your dad are talking about whatever, when I'm at Home Depot, should I get these screws or whatever it looks like,
exactly.
That is the activity over which quality time can occur, right? And so that's the first thing. And so it sounds like you have a good handle on that. That's awesome. I'm gonna throw it over to Jordan. Like, so with both of your fathers and with my father, even though he just passed away on Friday or Saturday, I'm reminded of my buddy down the street who his dad is a very successful businessman who came to Canada from Holland like in the 50s and kind of invented the whole nightlife here with like numerous bars and restaurants. And my buddy was lamenting that, like, in his old age, now that like he's trying to be a businessman and his dad was a super successful businessman, he's not getting the business education that he would hope for in his father's ends of years. Like in the end of his life, like he's not getting the, son, here's the wisdom, son, here's the blueprint, right? And so so Jordan, it sounds like you've made peace with the fact that you're not going to get some kind of blueprint from your dad, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so tell me about that.
Well, I mean, I always kind of knew that wasn't going to happen. Because, when I was younger, obviously I was trying to find ways to connect with him. So like, he's always been into like old trucks and stuff. When I was 19 or 20, I bought a 77 Dodge Power Wagon for $200 and a flat screen TV, not flat panel, flat screen. But And so I took that down there to him to work on it with him, and he showed zero interest in like trying to work on this truck. And he was a big Dodge guy, big truck guy. And so at that moment, I kind of knew he just had no interest in like doing father-son things with me. So I knew he had all the knowledge in the world on this vehicle, on these, cars, trucks, whatever. And at that moment, when I went down there to like bring it to him, to work on it with him, wrench on it, whatever, because that was the thing that he did. I wanted to connect with him on that thing. When he showed no interest in it, that kind of put a nail in the coffin, in a sense that I was like, oh, he just doesn't want to share things with me. Like, he doesn't want to pass anything on to me for some reason. And I don't know why. And so I never pressed it again. I never really thought that any big, revelation was going to come. And he like, well, these are the things that I learned in my life. This is what I'm going to pass on to you, because he didn't even want to pass on as simple as, wrenching on a truck with me. So I just kind of knew like those things were never going to come.
Yeah, I'm looking at 77 Dodge Power Wagons here on Google Images, and that's like a crazy, like, it's like a white supremacist limousine, dude.
Dude, it's so bad. It's so bad.
They're crazy.
I was like,
trucks, dude.
Yeah, and mine had the macho paint job, so it was like the orange and black. It was the most redneck thing I've ever bought in my life.
Amazing.
It was crazy. It was a cool ass truck. It was super fun to drive. I did all the work on it myself, actually.
Awesome.
I changed the carburetor out and all that.
Isn't that interesting? Like that. You didn't get the kind of leave it to Beaver moment with your dad, and you had to figure it out for yourself. Yeah. I'm not going to credit him with giving you that valuable lesson, but like, it's interesting the way that life is. And Count, same as you, I think you are probably called to figure out a lot of stuff on your own, rather than getting him to kind of like shop teacher it for you, right? And so that's a valuable. I think that's maybe like, if I can meet Wes halfway on the like the way he celebrates being a kind of like a self-made person. I think that is that independence you all learned was a valuable takeaway from either having a constructively absent father or a literally absent father. I know that there's a family that's extremely wealthy, and they're kind of like old money here, and there's some of them that are just absolutely incapable of working, not because they're lazy, but just because they were so rich for so long that they were never that kind of independence and stick-to-itiveness was never forced on them, like the way we're talking about. And so they just they would literally prefer to drink themselves to death or tranquilize themselves than go work at a restaurant or whatever kind of Joe jobs we've done. In closing, I guess, like the absentee father, like having to work as a busboy or whatever kind of Joe job, it can be an important maturing process for a young man, right? Like teaching you that, where you have to teach yourself how to work, where you have to like kind of force yourself into the grown-up world. And so, Count, I want to thank you for, because there was static on the line. Thank you for going into your 77 Dodge Power Wagon truck for the remainder of the
happy to do it.
The show. And then we'll just close with Ryan's comment here. He's on the job. He's basically operating some kind of power saw with one hand and texting us with the other. But there are so many moments where if I didn't have patience, I wouldn't teach my son something. I really think guys take their fatherhood for granted and get mediocre with their parenting. He is doing something that would probably give me a hangnail. Okay. Gentlemen, thank you for Count, Jordan, Ryan, Wes. Thank you for chiming in. Thank you for helping me process my loss, man. The loss of a father is an opportunity to be a father. All right. Love you guys.
Love you too, bro.
Love you, dudes.